So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome at the Institute of International Relations Professor Egbert Jahn. It's of course a pleasure also to welcome you all for the debate. Professor Egbert Jahn is one of the leading experts on Central Europe and Eastern Europe in Germany. He worked as professor at the University of Frankfurt am Main and later in Mannheim, and he is what Germans call Doktorvater of quite a number of outstanding German experts on Central and Eastern Europe. So it is a pleasure to welcome you, Egbert, at the Institute. It's not your first time at the Institute of International Relations. It has a long history, your links with Prague and also with the Institute. So it is a great pleasure to have you back in Prague. And the topic we choose is what we thought intriguing and interesting, also because Egbert Jahn is going to present and to show you that the German debate on migration crisis is a very multifaceted debate, and so one of the facets is going to be represented by Egbert Jahn, and we look forward to what you have to say in about half an hour, and then we open the discussion for everybody present in the room. So again, welcome Egbert, and welcome also to you. Unfortunately, the director Peter Kratchil can't be with us, but mentally he is with us. So, okay. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here since I studied in Czechoslovakia in the 1960s, not in Prague, but in Bratislava, and I wrote my PhD thesis on the history of Czechoslovakia in the 20s. So this is a personal affiliation to this country and to this place. I think the refugee crisis is one of the most serious crises we have in Europe since the 1950s. It's a really challenge to the existence of the European Union, much more than the financial crisis in 2008 or the debate on Greek policy. And it is also a threat to the existing political party system in many countries. Maybe we will face in a few weeks a complete change of the political party system in Germany. Maybe the Social Democratic Party, which has a long history of 150 years, will become a minority party, smaller than right-wing nationalist parties. So we are in a very serious situation. And Germany has a very peculiar position in this crisis. And it is completely combined with the European Union, much more than, I would say, Czech Republic or any other state, even including France or Britain. And I want to explain that why this is. The refugee crisis became a European topic only in the last year, although we had refugee problems already many years ago, but as long as it was only a problem of Italy and Greece, nobody cared about that in France or in Germany. Situation escalated in the end of August when 10,000s of people were using the route from Turkey, Greece, up to the Central Europe, and many thousand people waited in a miserable situation in Budapest, And that situation, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of West Germany, said we must help. And the refugees are welcome. That was her famous statement. Wir schaffen das. We will succeed, or we will do it. If you have read in an American journal, this statement was interpreted as an invitation to refugees, but not only this word, but much more the welcome attitudes of large sections of the society, collecting at the rail stations, showing signs of welcome refugees, giving them gifts of all kinds. And this was transferred into not only in television, but by the modern media, so that the information that Europe, and Europe means more and more it is Germany. We are welcome in Europe. We are welcome in Germany. Was transferred to Afghanistan, to sub-Saharan Africa, etc., not only to the Syrian refugees in Lebanon, Jordania, and Turkey, but worldwide. And this combination of the invitation of Angela Merkel, but much more, in my view, of the population at the rail stations, gave an input to the refugee movement. And in the years before, we had some 1,000 people coming to Italy, to Lampedusa. That was seen as a certain catastrophic humanitarian aspect, but it was seen more or less as an Italian problem, because the European states decided that the refugee problem has to be dealt by those countries at the border of the European Union. So far, I couldn't find out why it was possible to make this Dublin agreement, saying that a refugee should his interest should be handled by the country where the people enter Europe. And usually you don't come to Finland when you enter Europe, but you have to go via Malta, Greece, or Italy. I don't know so far why Italy and Greece were so stupid to sign this. Maybe, I can only speculate, they didn't understand the problem enough. They thought it's a problem of some 1,000 people and not of 10,000 and 100,000. But that is an historical question. So from that situation we have the real mass movement. I want to say a few words why we have this mass movement now. And in my paper, you can read it later on in the internet. I can give you the website in detail. I found that there are some structural arguments for the mass movement of refuge. One is the globalization of transport and of information. In former centuries and decades, refugees were only able to leave the country either by foot or sometimes by horse or cow, but usually they had to eat the horse before they could cross the border. So the reach of leaving the country was very limited. And if you consider the civil wars in China and in Russia in the beginning of the century, only a few 100,000 were able to leave the country. The peasants in Russia couldn't leave Russia. Only some intellectuals and upper class people could leave it. So refugee problem was more or less a local and regional problem. That has changed due to the modern transport system that you can use now, the modern transport system, and what is very important, the modern social media, that you can keep contact with your family in Afghanistan within a few seconds. It's a difference if you leave your countries and say goodbye and we see in the next life again, or after 20 years. So in a few seconds you are informed how your family is going on. That is a complete new structural situation. So therefore we have to see, we have a globalization of the refugee problems. In addition to the fact that we still have about 25 wars in the world, my argument is we will have this globalization of the refugee problem is a very long problem which will face your generations still in not only in 10 years, in 20, 30 years. That is my pessimistic assessment. We have an increase in refugees. And we have an increase of the refugee movement coming to Europe due to all these problems of civil war, of political persecution, and in addition, and we have to make analytically a difference between the migration problem and the refugee problem. In a local and usual language, in German, I think it's Czech the same, we speak of environmental refugees, of poverty refugees, but in a legal sense, these are not refugees, these are migrations, as well as the tax refugees are not refugees in the legal term. So the international law is restricting the term of refugees to trans-border migration due to civil war and political persecution. The internal refugees are so-called IDPs, and internationally we don't care for it. So the next aspect is that up to now we are only interested in refugees at our doors. Usually that is before the borders of our countries, but since we live in the European Union, we are interested in what is going on in Italy, in Greece. Up to now, we are not interested in what is happening in Southeast Asia. We are not interested in what is happening in sub-Saharan Africa. In Darfur, there are millions of refugees also going to other countries. So only because we see the refugees in our media, we have a humanitarian and a political problem. And that is a qualitative change in the international system, and that will not change. My argument, that will be a permanent problem. The other problem is how many refugees are welcome in Europe. As you know, in all countries are different welcome. The upper limit in some countries like Poland is 0. The upper limit is 0. In some cases, perhaps we want some Christian refugees, but no Muslim. The problem is the present wars are almost only in non-Christian and Muslim countries. There's a little problem. The argument is, if you look on the European scale, there is only a limited readiness to accept refugees, changing from country to country. The last Polish government said we will accept some 10,000 refugees. Then they said we want 0. Czech Republic, you know how the situation is. And what is about Germany? Germany is in a special situation since people coming to Europe want to go to Germany. In that sense, in the minds of the refugees, Europe is Germany. And they come via Greece, Macedonia, etc. You know, all the road, the Balkan road. And all nations on this road say, you are welcome, but tomorrow please leave our countries at the other border, to the north. So all countries on the Balkan route are transfer countries. Some people stay in Austria, less in Hungary, and less in Croatia, and they all want to come to Germany. And Germany is the end of the world. For some months they wanted to go to Sweden, but Sweden said, we have enough, please stay in Germany. And Germany is not in the situation to play the same role like Austria, Croatia, etc. You are welcome, and we bring you to the border of Czech Republic, Denmark, etc. That is impossible. That is morally impossible. That is politically impossible. I wouldn't dare to say what would happen if we say your share of refugees is a few 100,000, please, Czech Republic, receive them. So Germany can't say that for moral reasons, but also for political reasons. Because if Germany stops to accept refugees, that is the end of the European Union. And we can't send all refugees to Calais, what the French tried to do, 10,000 people to Calais, hoping that one day a ferry will go to the United States or to Britain. And the ferry will not enter the harbor of Britain or United States. So we are in a completely helpless situation. That is the background. And in Germany we have the situation that we have an all-party coalition to accept the policy of Merkel. Not only the coalition Social Democratic, but the most fervent adherents of Merkel are the Left Party and the Green Party. So we have at the moment an all-party coalition. You may ask why that is the case. And I would say that is really, nobody expected it. I even never expected that. And it's very difficult to explain why the Germans behave completely different to the British. In our media, they always blame the East Central Europeans, but they forget about the French and the British. That is the bad character of the German debate. It's not only the evil Polish and Czech and etc. It's Britain, France, and to some extent also Italy. I try to explain that. One thing is, of course, Germany is in the good situation that we have a low unemployment rate. So it's a difference if 50% of the youth, like in Spain, do not want a few 100,000 additional immigrants. Germany and the German industry wants workers from other countries, even if they have no vocational training, so we can teach them within 2-3 years, they will be welcome. So there is a lack of labor force in the industry. That is certainly a very important factor. And the French Le Pen say that is only the interest of the great capital of Germany who want to have a cheap labor force. That is the reason why they have this humanitarian attitude. But I think more important is a certain learning process after the National Socialism. I think we have faced a certain cultural revolution, I would say, in traditional terms, that people changed their mind. And what you hear often also, we have to experience what it means to be a refugee. 12 million Germans came from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Russia, etc. About 3 million Russian Germans came from Russia. So we know how it is to live in a country where nobody wanted us. Although they were Germans, they were foreigners in the minds of the West Germans, or these Sudeten Germans and etc. They were not welcome, but of course they didn't have the language problem. So some experience of the own fate is, you can hear from many people. We know that. In addition, I think at the railway stations are also many immigrants of the last decades coming from various countries who are now saying, we were welcome on the whole in Germany in the 60s, and now we want to repay that for humanitarian reasons. So I think there are some sociological elements why the German society reacted different to the problem than other countries with another history. So a combination of, I would say, economic structural reasons, political learning processes, and perhaps also the fact that we have a grand coalition between the conservatives and the social democrats, so they can't use this issue as a political tool in their fight, and the leftists can't oppose to it. So that is a problem. So, in principle, in my paper, I outline 12 different attitudes to the refugee problems. It's not either you are for or against. There are 4 welcome positions. The first one I call the Merkel's welcome position is to say, according to German law, every human being who comes to the German border has a right by constitution and by the international to apply for asylum. This is a right without any upper limit. But we, as the German government, so is Merkel's position, try to distribute the refugees in Europe, and in September last year we had an agreement between the various countries, a certain, according to the population size, the economic power, and unemployment rate, to distribute them in Europe. I don't know how many percent to the Czech, I think 2 or 3 or something percent. To Germany, 26%. But at the moment we have 100% or almost 100%. So one attempt is to distribute them. I mean, Europe pleading for European solidarity. That is the overall slogan in German policy. And we find more and more that there is no European solidarity. In a way, you could say the Germans have the feeling they are the last Europeans in Europe, with a feeling of European responsibility, which I think is a very dangerous argument. And it causes the counter-argument, I think it was first mentioned in Hungary, of moral imperialism of the Germans. They say, we the Germans teach you, all the others, what is good morale and what is international law. So we have some sort of nationalism in this debate. This policy should be combined with the attempt to fight the reasons for the flight. That means ending the war in Syria, as we succeeded to end the war in Ukraine. German policy was contributing a certain thing, as we contributed to the détente process in Iran, we must do the same in Syria, and Steinmeier, the foreign minister, does some job in this direction. And in addition, we want to make a deal with Erdogan, although Erdogan is not the top Democrat in Europe, but we have to be realist, pragmatists. We must keep many refugees in Turkey. That is her solution, and the rest we take, some 100,000 we will take also in 2016 and 2017. That is illogical of this first position. The other is the extended Balkan position, saying that all this refugee way on the Balkan is inhuman. We should send our ferries directly to Turkey or to Syria and take them from there. Or send some 100 airplanes and take them from there. That is the extended position you find on the humanitarian fringes of the existing parties and in non-governmental organizations. The third position is what I call the global citizen position, which you have in non-governmental organizations, saying that every refugee has a freedom to select the country where he wants to live. I call that the global citizen position. So refugees are the real global citizens. They can choose to live where they are. But this is a very minority position, but in the open debate you can find it. And the fourth, more extensive position is the welcome position also for migrants, saying not only civil war and political persecution is a reason to leave the country, but also poverty and environmental problems. So we should all give them the status, legal status of refugees. That is a very, but I don't see any chance that will become relevant. But in the public debate at the university, my students are very much in favor of this, saying, well, we must accept all these people. Germany is a rich country. We have so many. We are only 80 million. Why shouldn't we accept some 5, 6, 7 billion refugees? That is. Then you have various attempts to limit the refugees, and the most important political group is, of course, the right-wing nationalist movement of the Alternative für Deutschland, which will probably gain about 15 or more % in the next elections in March, and could be the third strongest party in the Bundestag election next year, in my assessment. But in addition, and that is very important, in the Bavarian branch of the conservative parties, the Christian Democratic, saying we must limit, and Seehofer said we must limit it to 200,000 immigrants this year. So within the established party, it begins to say we must stop it. And we must stop it in the Austrian way, by the Austrian Social Democrat Prime Minister, saying we build up a fence, not like the Hungarians, more moderate like the Austrians. That is also necessary in Germany. And within the CDU, this position is spreading very much. So I assume either we have in the next 2-3 months, either Merkel will be ousted if she is not flexible, and there is speculation if she is flexible or not, or we have a change of the government, that the new CDU government will say we must stop it. I have 7 other positions which are less relevant. Expulsion position, kick them out, all these foreigners, or the deterrent position, let us treat them like the Greeks so that they suffer, or they should not have a better situation like in Jordania and Lebanon. If we treat them like in Lebanon, they will stay in Afghanistan, etc. All these fantasies you find in the debate. So there are various positions. It's not an either-or position. My assessment of the situation is, on the one hand, as I said, we have a continued refugee movement. Nobody can stop it. No Steinmeier, no United Nations. So it will continue. On the other hand, the political readiness of Europe is to limit it. One can debate more or less, but we will not take all of them. What to do? Either we have the Australian policy, if boats come, send the boats away. Go home. You get some water, some fuel but bye-bye. That's all. Or the warships of NATO should send the refugees not to Italy, but to Libya. And not to Greece, but not to Turkey. To Libya will work perhaps, but not to Turkey, because Turkey is a NATO partner. So it will not work. So the alternative, the practical future which we face in the coming weeks is the Visegrad countries will have a fence in Macedonia. It started already, and the Visegrad countries will support it, and Austria will pay it to some extent, because we don't want an Austrian fence. It's better we have a Macedonian fence. We leave the problem to the Greeks. And we have then the humanitarian crisis and that, plus the political breakdown of the European Union. That is not acceptable, and therefore the German government will pressure on Czech Republicans that you can't do that. We can't have a situation like that in Greece. That is the end of democracy in Greece and the end of the humanitarian ideals of the European Constitution. My proposal in this situation is to say, if that is correct, we have no political readiness in Europe to accept 2-3 millions. And Germany will not accept 1 million refugees next year when you have Bundestag elections. It's impossible to think that. Even the Social Democrats have to give up. And the Greens too. The alternative is to say, yes, the refugees are coming to Europe. We must have refugee settlements at the border of Europe. Like in Jordania, South Turkey, etc., but on a much higher humanitarian level. And these refugee settlements with hundreds of thousands of people, it's not a few thousand, hundreds of thousands of people, they have to live under a certain European rule, European police, European judiciary, European payment, a combination of private payment of humanitarian groups, plus state-funded, and the refugees stay there until the civil war ended. Of course, you could say not all civil wars end within 2 years. I would assume we will have an end of the war in Syria in 2 or 3 years. That will not last for 30 years, but not in Afghanistan. There is a war in Afghanistan in 40 years. So we will have people who live there not only for 2, 3, but perhaps for 5, 10 years or longer. So eternal refugees. And that problem could be solved in the way that these long term refugees get the chance of immigration to Europe. And that immigration to Europe could be prepared by training in labor skills and in language. So let us take Czech Republic. Nobody wants to come to Czech. They all want to go to Germany or to Britain. So that Czech Republic can say, we will accept, let us say, 10,000 refugees, if we train them in the island of Greece, where we have the refugees, that they are prepared to come to the Czech Republic, that they are able to integrate in this society. So these refugees settlements would not be ghettos, or the polemic argument would be concentration camps or something. So that they are regions where people either are prepared to go back to their countries or to be integrated in Europe. That would also be mean that the education system would be different than present. At present in Germany, everybody says integration means learning German, because without learning German, you can't get a job. So they are only speaking about German education, but nobody speaks that perhaps they would return. So the children should be educated in Arab language. So my argument would, in these refugee settlements, the mother language is the primary education language, plus perhaps the potential immigration language, country language, or plus English as the international language. So that would be completely different. I think that's the only problem, the only solution we could recommend. I wrote to the office of Angela Merkel in November and December, but didn't get an answer. So they don't want to use. They still hope that Erdogan will solve the problem, but my assumption is Erdogan will not solve the problem, and therefore we are facing a real catastrophe in this spring and summer.
Mm-hmm. Well, many thanks.
This is very short. If you want, you have no. I could write my address there, or you just give your name into the internet, and then you'll find my website where you find the full text. It's 37 pages in English, or in German, in both languages. You can download that.
So, thank you very much, Egbert. I think it was a very inspiring overview of the debate, and also inspiring proposal. How to deal with the crisis. We will start with Jakub Eberle, and I start actually with introducing Jakub Eberle to the public. I forgot. This is also occasion. Jakub just recently joined the Institute of International Relations. He is a scholar trained in international relations security studies, and he's dealing primarily with Germany, and he now is the member of the staff of the institute. So Jakub, sorry I forgot to mention you. We start perhaps with our short questions, but we will be very short because the time is coming is quite short as well. We have to finish at about 18:30, so there is not much time for debate. My first question perhaps would be if you. Because I follow the German debate quite closely, but I didn't find any specific qualification of what the Angela Merkel anti-welcome culture might have meant in terms of increase of the migration or refugee problem and the numbers of refugees, because the whole situation started well before that, and one of my criticisms towards German policy would be that Germany actually, given the situation as it developed, Germany should have come with a program or plan of solution by end of 2014. Because the 2013 there was 100,000 applicants for asylum in Germany. 2014 it was 200,000. Mid 2015 it was another 200,000. So even without Angela Merkel, and welcome culture. By the end of 2015, at least 400,000 application would be handed over, which means at least 600,000 people would come to Germany, because not everybody is able to apply for asylum. So my question is, how can you, if you know these figures or assessments, what in real terms meant this welcoming culture in terms of increase above this expected 600,000, which they would perhaps would have come anyway without welcome culture? So that's the question, just a specific question on the numbers, the figures. But then second question, which you don't have to answer right away, but we can answer it or discuss it later on with the public, is of course the plan B. We all are eager to know what the plan B is. Is there a plan B or A2, as Egbert says? Again, yesterday and today there are rumors that the plan B, a national solution. The plan B obviously is a national solution. It's not. Europe is not working. We don't believe Europe will work, so we have a national solution. So, do you know, or do you expect Germany to have a plan B? Yeah, you indicated there is this Austrian fence type of solution, but do you think there is a plan B now in Bundeskanzleramt, and it is part of the debate? So that's perhaps my two short question. I hope short, because you can come up with short answers. Jakub, do you want to step in with your question as well?
I think we can wait for Professor to.
Okay, so
start.
The answer is clearly that Bavaria says, yes, we have plan B. We want to build a fence in Bavaria, like the Austrians and like the others. So in the right wing of the of the Christian Democratic Party also, they will be ready to have that. They all know that will not the solution of the problem. Therefore, I developed all these ideas. The deterrence position. If Germany stops, then the Afghans know it's useless to go to Europe. So that is the idea. That in the long run, we have a deterrent position. Of course, it's very bad for these people who are now in Macedonia or Croatia or wherever. These are the poor guys. But let us be realists, let us pragmatic. Look how the Americans treat the immigrants at the border. So we will see very soon more pictures about the American-Mexican border, where the high fences, where the policemen staying with guns, and the population will be educated in this realistic sense. And looking to the pictures on Ceuta and Melilla between Spain and Morocco, where you have electric fences, 3 fences, I think, behind. You have dogs lying at the wall. So that may be another psychological factors why the Germans associate fence with the wall in Berlin. But I think all these pictures, and we will show the wall in Israel, saying, let us see it works. And let us see Hungary, it works. So we will have a change in this direction. And that is plan B. Not in the Bundeskanzleramt. So, as I said, people speculate if Merkel will be flexible and pragmatic enough to adopt. And so far, she was always a political realist, or is she an idealist? And then she has to go. If she is really a Protestant daughter of a, how do you say, pastor?
Yeah.
Prof, priest, so she cannot give in, so she will say goodbye, or the others say, please, you served us, but now it's the end. That may happen this summer.
Mm-hmm. And on the qualification of the sort of increase numbers coming after the welcome culture and selfies?
At the moment, there are coming to Europe every month more than 60,000.
Sure,
that is more than 2016. It will be more than 1 million. And that I think the German population will not accept.
Sure. Okay.
So in that sense, the Visegrad countries are defending Germany.
My argument was that the wave of refugees was coming anyway, but the question is how much it increased with the gestures. Do you have a question?
I have a lot of notes. I'm trying to phrase them around questions. I actually kind of share your assessment. That's like I'm actually deeply uncomfortable with this narrative we are now telling ourselves about the refugee crisis, right? That, it kind of all started with Angela Merkel suddenly rediscovering her Protestant moral roots and things like that. I mean, you went as far back as 2013, but actually, if you look at the Libya crisis of 2011, back then you already had around 200,000 Libyans flooding Lampedusa, and Sicily and places like that, with the Germans saying, well, this is not our problem, we have the Dublin Agreement. So I wouldn't probably...
Although everybody knew that the Italians played the role of Austria, saying, here is the way to Austria, here is the way to France, please go away. And I think about 2/3 of the people who are coming to Italy, they left Italy. Sure. And that was a silent conspiration in Europe. And Germany accepted it. You have to see that the entrepreneurs think in terms of labor force. And the argument is, since we have the lowest birth rate in Germany, only 1.3 children per woman, and we need 2.1 so we need about 500,000, 600,000, 300,000 immigrants. They think only in terms of labor force. They don't see, I couldn't discuss these problems, the political consequences. We will have an increase in right-wing nationalism. We will get many non-democrats. While crossing the Aegeus, you don't become a Democrat. We have a considerable rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. And all these negative political aspects. And my argument is, maybe the Germans are better than the French, than the British, the Americans to integrate these minorities. We are not so brutal like the Bolognaise in France. Maybe the Germans learn a bit, but I think we are not really better than the others. So we have these brutal ethnic clashes, ethnic social clashes. My students say that's too much pessimistic. Capitalism is doesn't care for ethnic differences. No, I say, if you are an entrepreneur, you look, what are your qualifications? Qualification number 1 is language. You are Pakistani, you are Syrian, you are a German, I take the German. So we have a ethnic social stratification. And that is a problem that is not enough discussed in Europe, only by the right-wing parties, how to solve the problem. And as I say, the established groups don't discuss it because they see only, I need labor. Yesterday I had the discussion better in Tunis. I said, why don't you take Greek and Spanish youth? No, it's better than Arab, because the Arab who will come to Germany, he wants to stay in Germany. The Spanish youth, he wants to return to Spain. So we lose. It's too expensive to invest in Spanish youth or Greek youth because they don't stay in Europe, in Germany. So you have a pro-Arabic or pro-Afghan attitude because they are so pure that they will do and assimilate to our conditions. That is the pragmatic, brutal, capitalist logic. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I actually do have a question. I totally share your assessment, the one you started with, that actually this is only the beginning. There is much more going on, and it's going to last for 20 or 30 years. Because, I mean, if we take that there is roughly 3 million refugees in Turkey alone, roughly 1.5 million refugees in Lebanon alone, then there is probably much more to come. Actually, do you think that all these plan Bs, like, you know, fences, contingents, or these settlements you were kind of arguing for, that actually this is something that can, in any meaningful way, help us regain control of what is going on? That actually this is not only something that the politicians or the elites more generally like to tell their audiences, because, you know, it's always easy to build a fence, right? It doesn't cost that much. It can be done in a matter of weeks or something like that. Whereas actually to do anything meaningful, it would take a drastic redistribution of, you know, resources all over the world, drastic change of approach towards the so-called developing world countries and all these things. So, in short, is it actually building a fence, be it in Macedonia, Bavaria, or building these settlements you are talking about, just something that is terribly short term and terribly inefficient if you take a kind of bigger picture perspective?
It will, of course, not be efficient, and it's possible to close it. But it will be efficient, like the American border to Latin America. It's not only to Mexico, because most people who are coming from Caribbean, from Ecuador, and even from Latin America. So it's a very fundamental. It works. The price is very high. Many people are dying in the desert, Mexico, or in the floods of the Colorado or of the yes, and that will be the brutal education of the European population. Yes, what the boy died, and bottom, that is a normality. So we accepted it before Lampedusa. 23,000 people were drowning. It was no topic. Only in the fringes of humanitarian organizations. Yes, my argument would be, yes, we will face that. And yes, we will face that sometimes the police will shoot. Usually we shoot in the air or in the legs, but sometimes they shoot in the heart. Yes, that will be the solution, like in America. So Europe will be Americanized in that sense. I looked to the internet. There are about, I think, 20,000 police patrol on the southern border. So Europe will pay thousands of people defending Europe against the refugees. That, I think, will be the brutal reality as a prognosis. It will not solve the problems about the counter-argument of the European humanitarian groups in all parties will be, yes, the real problem is the social inequality in the world. And we must find problems how we solve the situation in Nigeria, in Sudan, etc. And that is a combination of political answers. You can't solve the problems of development only by development help if you, for example, like in Europeans build up Gaza and next war everything is against destroyed. That my fear is that the Israelis will learn from the refugee crisis. Next Gaza war, what would I do as an Israeli right-wing politician? Give the Palestinian boats from Gaza. Open the border. Say, there is Cyprus. It's just 150 kilometers. Bye-bye. Palestinians go to Germany and the Jews are going to Israel. That Netanyahu's reaction on the assault in Paris was, the Jews from France are welcome in Israel. So the refugee policy is in effect a policy of ethnic cleansing of some parts of the world. Send all your minorities to Central Europe. The Roma from Kosovo and from Serbia, send them to Central Europe or Western Europe or like Canada. Canada is here. So if this is an option to that you can send your ethnic minorities away, the Tamils from Sri Lanka, that is a horrible scenario, and there is no just humanitarian, there must be political alternative, you must have political answer to the problem in Syria. Why is there no Syrian peace movement? Have you ever heard of that? Why? Where are the Syrians interested to stop the war? They flee, but no political movement. Have you seen any proposal by the peace movement how to solve the Syrian problem or the problem of Iraq? So that is our task as political scientists. I think I don't blame these movements. But the argument was we must develop political solutions for all the problems. And therefore, I do this in my lectures. I propose, next lecture will on Syria. How could we imagine a solution of the Syrian problem? How the Kurds are an army. How you disarm the Kurds in Iraq, or is there political? I say yes, in theory, yes, but probably no readiness. The next problem is how to solve the development problem, a better social policy that is not giving help to the South, but to avoid that we, the Europeans, destroy the economy of the other countries. We send our T-shirts or our chicken to Africa, and the African peasants are losing their jobs, and that is a problem. So in this sense, you can say alternatives are discussed in the Green parties, left wing of the Social Democrats. The conservative parties are silent about these problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Egbert. Now we open the floor to everybody, so please, if you have a question or comment, so raise your hand and introduce yourself shortly, and of course, go ahead. So, yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Matěj Sikorský. I'm an undergraduate student of international relations here in Prague. First of all, thank you for your insightful remarks. My question is very political. In fact, two questions. First of all, how do we move from these sort of short-term solutions, especially in the European Council, whether it's quotas or other border closures and stuff like that, to more long-term ones, i.e. common border guards, globally backed political solutions in the Middle East and Northern Africa region? And in perspective of crises like the threat of the Brexit or the 25% unemployment in Greece or even research in Russia, how do we make this work?
How do we make?
How do we find a long-term solution of all these crises towards the refugee crisis, which isn't really in the focus of the political process?
To answer your question, I should stay a week here. In principle, I try that in my lectures on political issues under debate. And each case, you have a different answer. I say I am, as a peace researcher, must develop ideas on every problem, on Ukraine, on Syria, on the Kurdish problem, etc. So I hesitate to start to answer because that will be a long speech. Could you perhaps concentrate on one question that I can answer in a short time?
The question was quite general in the sense that the question was how to make actually the European Council ready to go for political solutions, if I understand you correctly. So how to generate the political will of the member countries to go for the long-term solution, not only for the short ones.
The European Council is a powerless institution. So they sent Juncker and Schulze I think to Turkey or Jordan, and they got 22 people to Luxembourg, but the rest of the promised 160,000 refugees that should be distributed are still there. No country is accepting the solutions of the European Council. So it's a teethless tiger, European Commission. The problem are the member states. And the policy is not made in Brussels, it's made in Berlin, in London, in Paris, and in Prague, and in Budapest. They decide. And they decide, we don't care for Europe. That is a bad reality. We now just notice that Europe is becoming more and more a fiction. That is horrifying for young people, but they should face it. And we need some opposition with, again, a movement. Why don't we have a European movement? Do you see a European movement, youth movement, saying we must save Europe? I don't see it. I would like to stimulate it. My ideas are trying to stimulate it. I said in the end of my paper, 10,000 of Europeans are going to Iraq and to Syria fighting for the Islamic States. I think also some dozens or hundreds from Czech, from Germany about 600, from Russia 2,000, from Ukraine several. So I think a third part of the Islamic State forces are European forces, plus Canadian and American. Why these people do so much? Why are not the millions of humanitarian people in Europe and in America, North America, unite to solve these problems? Why do we leave the initiative to these colleagues in our universities who are going tomorrow to Syria? And that is the real youth movement at the moment. That is frightening, and I try to stimulate the alternative.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps further questions? Yes.
Hello, my name is Peter. I have studied at Charles University Area Studies. Now I'm doing political science in Zurich. And I agree with your assessment, of course, of the securitization of borders, of the European borders, and actually that we will follow what is happening in US, but I think also in Australia that they are building fences and hoping it will protect the states. On the other hand, you said that the solution could be a creation of refugee camps, which will be long-term camps. And I'm not sure.
I say settlements, it's better.
Or settlements. I'm not sure if I understood. You want to have them in the member states, like in Greece and Italy, or they should be outside of Europe? Because you said that they should be on a level of EU or of European life standard minimum, let's say. So first question is, should they be in the member states or outside the EU? And the second question would be, as you said before, Europe didn't, or Northern Europe didn't care about the refugee crisis before Lampedusa. So we didn't care also about what is going on in Italy and Greece, that they are not able to accept so many refugees. Why do you think now it will be different if there will be these refugee settlements outside of Germany and then actually, and of course outside of Visegrad countries and they would just say, okay, it's your problem?
The first part of the answer is a pragmatic question. So I propose on an island because the police problem is reduced if you have an island and don't allow boats. They will stay there. But my student asked, why not in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern? That means on the eastern border of Germany, where there are only a few people. I think it's a pragmatic question. If we could convince the people in Kos, since they lose their tourism at the moment because of the refugees, people go as tourists there, why don't pay them? Say, you are building up the refugee settlement. You get a good salary from the European Union and from the NGOs, humanitarian. One of my students told me that an Egyptian billionaire said, I will buy such an island. I give some millions for that purpose. So I would think it's a very pragmatic question. The idea of an island is written in this paper because an island is the ideal signal. It does not mean integration into a European population. Please, we must find another solution. That is the reason why I propose an island. But I thought also that it will not work. Utoya, the island in Norway, this of the Social Democratic Youth, it's too small. You could, but if I would be a Norwegian, I would propose, yes, take Utoya and put some 1,000 Muslim people to Norway in this place, just because there was the attack of Breivik. We want to have the alternative culture. We invite the poor people from free. We take this island. Why not start with such a small island somewhere, or in any island in Finland also? I'm open for proposals.
So, John, the one?
Yeah. I just want to join the discussion because I can't disagree more with that actually.
Yes.
Because you said you don't want it to become a ghetto. You said we invite people. We want to share the alternative culture here at the island of Utoya. But at the same time, you say we want you here, but just there. Please don't move anywhere else.
Yes.
Just build your nice settlements, yes, so that we don't call it a camp, which I actually think it is. But please, you have to keep in mind that as long as the mess it's in your country is sorted, the next day you're on a boat and you go back. So how could you actually ever motivate people actually to do anything positive out of that? Because to me, frankly speaking, this is just a way how to keep the problem out of the sight of people. This is just really building this kind of giant fortress Europe. And it's it's just basically, it's just some sort of segregation policies. It's keeping the problem somewhere where it's not being seen by our voters.
But that is the majority reaction on these problems. So yesterday in German television, maybe also in Czech, you saw in Macedonia, the girl is trying to cross the fence. Of course, it's impossible to say Afghans who came thousands of kilometers to the Macedonian border, gave up all their property at home to send them back. That doesn't work. But the Europeans will do it. The majority of our countries, of the Visegrad countries, will build the fence. So that is the brutal reality which I have to see at first as a political scientist. I must see the reality. And then I must try to develop ideas which have a certain chance to get support. I ask my students, all my lectures are about 200 students every time, would you agree that we introduce a special tax for refugees? We have in Germany a special tax for the East Germans, integration of East German, 5.5% of the income taxes are used for the integration. Why not 1% for refugees? The majority of my people said yes. But so far, no party will accept an increase of... I talked to the Green Party. No tax. Take the tax from somewhere else. There is some readiness in the population to say, we have a problem, we have a certain humanitarian standard, and we try to find the second best solution. That is not a good solution, but if the reality is that Europe will close the border, that is a brutal political analysis, then we have to find alternatives.
Okay, that's a challenging idea, of course. So, ladies and gentlemen, further questions? Perhaps we can collect some questions.
Before you said that I'm Patrick, so I'm studying international relations in Prague. And I would like to ask you, because before you said that European Council is powerless. And my question is why? If the decisions are taken in Berlin and London, I think for all the members in the European Union, it would be more beneficial if they would act in a collective action, if they would act together. So why don't they use the instruments that European Union offers them? Because if actually we would really adhere to the strategies that European Council puts forward, I think it would be possible to overcome this refugee crisis if we would actually do this redistribution scheme and other policies that they are advising, and then we wouldn't need to give up our values, our humanitarian European values, and build fences. So why is it that European Union is failing?
Maybe we collect now, because we have the last 15 minutes. So, further questions or comments at this point? Anybody else? Okay, if not, then
There's
sorry. Yes.
It's okay. So Adriana from the Multicultural Center in Prague. I do agree with Jakub Eberle about his disagreement with the settlements, because I agree that I don't see how it will not turn into another ghetto. So I wonder what kinds of guarantees that you have to propose that makes it not into a ghetto. I just don't see it from our history, from with European history, from the past 100 years. I don't see a successful example of that. So perhaps if you have one, that'd be great to share. And then I'd like to challenge you on this to propose another. Because what you've proposed is a bit of a solution to this current crisis in the next 10 years. What I see as an equally important aspect is maybe a long-term strategy of changing attitudes, European-wide attitudes towards refugees, right? Towards migrants, towards this entire issue, and that ultimately, to me, entails the reevaluation of European engagement in the Middle East. I'm not speaking only about Germany. I include the Czech Republic. Our Prime Minister. Our foreign minister was just in Egypt making some business deals with 20 companies from the Czech Republic with Sisi, who is, obviously, I think they all agree, the second dictator. So I think there's a necessity to reevaluate European intervention in the Middle East, and I just wonder, and that includes, changing obviously the attitude towards refugees from there, because I think we have to just acknowledge our responsibility in this crisis. So, do you have an idea for how to do that as a long-term strategy?
Thank you. Perhaps one more question? Yes, please.
I'm a student in Metropolitan University for International Relations and European Studies. My question is, if Europe is able to open some, if we know that the refugee crisis, it's not, if we will see it's like from the beginning, it's because of Syria, Assad regime, and later on of ISIS. But what I would like to know more, it's why Europe doesn't collaborate with Gulf states and they can take a big amount of refugees, like Saudi Arabia or Emirates or Kuwait and Qatar. They have the same language and basically the same traditions. They can get very well integrated in these countries, and they are countries which has very good like economy, so they can work there. Why they are taking 0 refugees and Europe should take all of them? And like the question is that why Europe doesn't negotiate with them so they will split the amount.
Okay, so we have 3 questions. Is there anyone? So, this is a very brief one.
I will try to very briefly. You were talking about the asylum laws. Don't you think that they could be changed? Because there is ongoing debate that they were based on the Cold War experience. As you said that earlier the movement was very limited, and now with the, as you said, like faster possibility of movement, maybe these asylum laws are outdated. Do you think, I think it's in contradiction.
These other what?
Are outdated, that they are probably not fit for the
Asylum law.
Globalized situation in which we are. So, do you think that the laws, that the asylum will be limited in
Okay,
future?
thank you. So that's really, you have a lot to do now. 4
Yes.
questions.
Start with the last one. Asylum law is very different in any country, all countries. The German is the most progressive because of National Socialist past, but the Germans were so clever to have the Dublin Accord, and the Dublin Accord enables to say, in terms of international, we don't have to take any refugees, only the few dozens who come via Frankfurt airport. But according to Dublin, so the constitutional German is abolished by the international law treaty. The other in the international level, asylum law does not mean you have a right as a human being to go to any countries. So that is even it's not so that America, Canada, Czech Republic are anti-law. It is written that they must not take. It's their own decision to take these people. There's a certain limitation that the Convention of Geneva asks, but I couldn't clarify that problem. You have only the right to enter the neighbor country. But are you still a refugee if you are coming from Jordan to Czech Republic, or are you an immigrant? That's the argumentation of Orban. There are no refugees at all. There are only migrants. And according to that, that is not completely senseless. That is real international law, and international law is interstate law, so we have to be realists in that terms. The question before was
why the Arabic countries don't
well,
accept
the Europeans are constantly asking them. Do you know the answer of Saudi Arabia to that? The Saudi Arabian answer is the cultural difference between Syria and Saudi is so huge that we can't accept the Syrians. And that is not completely ridiculous. It is a certain logic. Syria was a secularized modern dictatorship with the women don't have these headscarves. And in Saudi Arabia, a very orthodox Wahhabite ideology. If they would accept these 100,000, that would be a revolution in Saudi Arabia. So it's a really threat to the political system of Saudi Arabia to accept these secularized modern Syrians. And the Gulf states said, we have only, I think, 5 to 15% of citizens in our countries. In our countries are living already 85% foreigners. I have not the And we prefer Pakistanis to Arabs because Pakistanis stay foreigners and we can send them back. If we would accept Arabs, that would be a danger of our political system. Therefore, we have a fence, by the way, we have a fence between Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Jordania. So that's the reason why European pressure doesn't work on the Arab countries, and they will not take this dangerous input. The other question was European Union. We have to see that we have only a few Europeans in Europe, in the sense of European-minded people. And the European elites are more European than European populations. That we know since many years in all countries. The European elites or the bureaucrats are more European-minded than the nations. So we live in a Europe where we have still nationalistic nations. And the raison d'être of the European Union was the common market. And Europe is seen as an opportunity to have a better life for our national life. Look carefully to the arguments of all our politicians. We are in Europe because it's good for us as Czechs, Germans, British. You can see that very openly now in Cameron's language. I am for the membership of Britain in Europe because it's good for Britain. And that is the logic. Look to your own politicians. That is the logic. Because the population of Europe is still nationalistic in the traditional sense, and European-mindedness is a minority. That is the reason why we have problems. And the refugee crisis is threatening. Greek crisis is a matter of money. So we can solve these problems, etc. But the refugee crisis is threatening the logic of our nation understanding. Either we change our understanding of our nation, that we can say we accept a Muslim minority. I would also say we cannot accept a Muslim majority in Europe because then we would have a totalitarian dictatorship. So not because I don't like Muslim, but because I don't like non-democratic majorities. Therefore, we can afford only a minority of Muslims, of real existing ones, not Muslims like I imagine in a progressive term. So that is the reason why there still have to accept we have a very nationalist population in Europe. Everybody wants to visit other countries without visa and passport. Yes, that is in our national interest, but not because we are Europeans. So that would be my skeptical argument to your question. There was another question?
There was a question on the active European Middle East policy, so being really engaged with solving the problems in the Middle East, not only perhaps in the Middle East, because this crisis crisis areas, and the argument was that we don't do enough, of course, and we just stay along and we are not shaping the outcome.
We should give answer to very different sections of the problem. In Iran atomic policy seems to work. Europe is unable to develop really an alternative for the Palestine-Israeli policy. We have only our slogans. We want a two-state solution. We want the end of the settlement. But there's no answer how to react on the permanent extension of the Israeli settlements, Jewish settlements in Palestine. After some years or decades, the Palestinians will go to Europe. So I, as a right-wing Israeli, would propose, hey, let us have a new Gaza war and send all the Palestinians to Europe. That's it. So there's no solution to that because the American Congress, not the population, to some extent the American Congress is a combination of very ideological pro-Israeli positions, not as anti-Semites because the Jews are too powerful, because there is a Christian ideology that the rule of the Jews in Palestine is a precondition of the coming back of Christ to the world. So we need Israel as an instrument for overcoming Muslim and Jewish rule of the world, in order that Christ will come again to look to the evangelical ideology. And that is dominating in the American Congress. The presidents always tried, Obama also, but the president is powerless. The political most important force is the Congress, and especially the Senate. And Europeans are unable to oppose America. A little bit the French, the Germans of course not, because of the history. So Europeans tolerate the permanent humiliation of the Arab world by the Israel-Palestine problem. That is one answer. The other answer is we have no answer to the clash between the Sunnites and the Shiites in the Middle East. We have a coalition of the Shiites against the Sunnites, and they unite in the war in Iraq. And so far, I don't even see any other solution so far, and the Zeit was one. Let us dissolve all these states. Have a Sunnistan, have a Shiite state, have a Kurdish state. That is the old solution that is catastrophic because it's combined with how to say, putting out
ethnic cleansing, you mean?
Ethnische Säuberung, ethnic cleansing, etc. So I think it's no. My answer would be, in general, because I can't talk for a week, federalism is the answer, traditionals. We must have a strong Kurdish state in Iraq. We must have a strong Shiite state in Syria that is protecting the people who are supporting Assad against the Sunnites, because if the Sunnites will they will liquidate the Shiite, the Alawite minority in Syria. Therefore, we must develop ideas of compromises in that direction, of the old-fashioned federalism. So in that direction, I would think. But for every country, you have different answer in this direction, and for Iran must be also another solution.
Okay, many thanks, Egbert. I think it was a very interesting debate, and we are also very happy that the students and the members of the public joined us in this debate. Maybe we could end with a bit more optimistic note, and one way one of the last public opinion polls done in Europe now on 8 European countries shows that there is a great deal of trust in German state and German policy. There is a great deal of trust among Europeans in French policy, and even the Czechs, who are actually the most skeptical nation in Europe at the moment. They really are so negatively sort of positioned now that even the Czechs, 60% of Czechs believe and trust Germany as a neighbor and as a European state. So perhaps there is some kind of hope for more European way of thinking and identity and socializing. But I do agree, and we all agree that at the moment the picture is quite bleak, and we will have to go through quite a long period of perhaps crisis and search for solution. So again, thanks to everybody, and most of all, of course, thanks to you, Egbert.
I encourage you to develop good ideas, better ideas than mine. Starting point is realistic analysis of the present situation.
Okay.